I'm really interested to see actually what you all think in terms of the entire thing being in 1966 and where it's filmed. The entire thing is dubbed. It's all dubbed over. It's all of the dialogue has been recorded post production. I was interested to see what you think about that, because clearly some of the actors aren't speaking English. I don't know if you noticed that when you're watching it, but clearly there's apparently the actors were allowed to speak their native language. You know, if they were Spanish actors playing extras who had a one line or whatever, they were just allowed to deliver the line in Spanish, and then it was dubbed over later in English. That's why sometimes it doesn't quite sync up. I was just like, Tom, if you have any thoughts on that, just the fact that it is a film you watch that has been entirely dubbed in a studio post production. Did it have an effect on how you viewed it?
From sitting here knowing how old the film was, no, I don't think so. Because I think you kind of expect that from older films, that the audio quality and the filming quality is not going to be the same as it is. But I think that's almost why it's kind of more enjoyable, because they don't have the effects that you can kind of play around with. So everything is kind of real sounds, all the gunfires are real gunfires and everything. So I think actually it's not like a charm that it gives it, but I don't think it really took away from anything as part of the film, because I think that's one of the worst things about modern films, is there's too much CGI. That's like my biggest bugbear with absolutely everything, when there's no real need for it. Whereas all the kind of even the makeup shots in this, where Blondie's in the desert and he's like wilting.
What great makeup that was though as well.
Amazing, because it's still all real. It's all kind of real, and it feels like the film has kind of that texture to it.
That sunburn makeup.
Dubbing did it really effective for me.
Yeah.
I was watching it on YouTube, so I did wonder whether it was my stream as well. But
that's why I say it. Is I thought suddenly, is it just synced up slightly a bit off? But actually, it's on Netflix as well. So I started watching it on Netflix, and it's exactly the same. It just turns out that it's all been dubbed over. But like you said, on the makeup as well, is like the sunburn on Blondie's face and stuff like that, it's so good, and like it is all you can see that it was all filmed within probably about a mile radius of like just an old mountainous range in Spain, with wooden a western village that was propped up to make it look like it was in the Wild West, and it was all filmed around there. They just sort of dotted around different locations for filming.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of set building for the film?
Yeah, masses of set building, and so my favorite fact about the film is that when there's the scene, when they're going and they stumble across that kind of battle across two sides of this one bridge with the Confederates and the Unionists there either side, and at the end they decide to just kind of draw them away from this epicenter of conflict by destroying the bridge that has this strategic significance. So there's the scene where they actually blow up this bridge. And my favourite fact about the film is that they've been working with like the Spanish army the whole time.
Oh yeah.
And in order to basically, Sergio Leone was like, right, I'll show my gratitude to the Spanish army by giving them the responsibility to be able to to blow up this bridge.
Is that true?
They're on walkie-talkies, and one of the crew members is like having a chat with another crew member, and the word for blowing up the bridge that Sergio Leone was going to give him was to say "vai," which means go. And one of the guys in the crew was just like, yeah, vai, like chatting to some other bloke, and then the Spanish army guy hears this and just blows up the bridge, and none of the cameras are rolling the entire time. And so Sergio Leone then lost it, sacked the crew member, sort of like fired him, told him to bugger off, and then the Spanish army general said, look, I was felt so guilty. He's like, look, I will rebuild the bridge for you, but under one condition, that you hire that crew member back. And apparently he did it, and then they reshot it all. And
for real?
What? No way.
And they got it. Yeah.
Rebuild the bridge just so they could blow it up again?
Yeah.
Fucking, what was the budget on that film? That is bonkers.
$1.2 million. $1.2 million was the budget.
Crazy.
Yeah.
1.6 that is crazy budget.
Yeah, $1.2 million at that point.
Is that mad? Is that crazy amount?
It's probably about.
Let me Google it.
What is it? About $8 million in today's?
Nah, it's got to be more than that. Surely.
With inflation? 1.2
That's
million.
still tiny. That's still like a tiny budget.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all just filmed out in Spain in the desert, isn't it?
Yeah, but mate,
Just
that
the mountains
quality
of
dubbing,
Spain.
that's going to cost a lot, man.
Yeah, it only made $25.1 million at the box office. Believe it or not.
Yeah,
I mean,
guys,
with
you Googled
inflation,
that
that's got to be
before.
like 200 million with
So
inflation. though.
it's 1 million in 1967 is the equivalent to about 8 million in 2020.
8 million.
Wow.
Bam, bingo. I know my conversions.
That's not that big of a budget.
No,
Guy Lambert knows his inflation.
I know my inflations. Guys, economics classes are free.
7.7 according to this.
No, yeah, it's What I mean, did you know much about Sergio Leone before this?
No.
A little bit.
Like with the release of with the release of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and you see Leonardo DiCaprio's character go off and do spaghetti westerns with the Italians, and it's like this is actually what it is. This is this is the time that it is, but in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it makes it look quite budget that he goes off and does that. But in reality, spaghetti westerns were huge in the 60s and the early 70s, absolutely huge. And you got some of the best actors going. I mean, this film, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, wasn't actually nominated for much in terms of awards. I think it's actually criminal that Eli Wallach, who played Tuco, he didn't get a supporting actor nod at all in any of the awards in awards season. I think it's absolutely criminal. I thought actually, as a character actor, I thought that was a brilliant performance as Tuco. But this spaghetti westerns is obviously before our time, but it really was like a massive thing. I think it's totally underappreciated.
It's probably like superhero films, like the equivalent
Yeah.
of it for our generation.
They are, yeah. Westerns are the equivalent of superhero films for their generation. I've read that quite a few times.
When was the Magnificent Seven released? Same period.
I think we're just before.
Probably.
Just before.
I mean, you had like John Wayne was obviously he's a name that always comes to mind in terms of like any Western
was earlier,
cowboy
though.
stuff. But yeah, like
Yeah.
but that's always what I think of. But he wasn't spaghetti western. He was just doing western.
Proper Western. Yeah,
Um,
because he must have been 40s because he got drafted for the war and refused to go. And it was like a big thing because he's like cast as this like tough guy, this like rugged kind of actor, and he refused to go and he got swept under the carpet by Hollywood. Tried to use his like fame as a way to get out of being drafted.
I did not know that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So whenever I watch a John Wayne film now, I'm always kind of like conflicted by it because
Yeah.
he just uses his fame to like manipulate his political situation.
Yeah.
Never seen a John Wayne film.
Oh,
Brilliant. That's so good.
They're really, really good.
How many have you seen? Which ones have you seen?
Oh,
Well, I don't even know the names of them, but I used to watch
Yeah.
them all the time with my mum and my nan.
there were films and TV
Absolutely
series
love
and
them.
loads and like.
What, like fully, like beginning to end, or just when they were on television?
Yeah, beginning to end. They're really good films. It's all cowboys versus Indians, though.
Yeah.
It's not like the setting of this film.
It's not as broad. Like, have you seen Once Upon a Time in the West? That's another Western film that's meant to. I've not seen either, but it's meant to be like this. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Once Upon a Time in the West are meant to be like the rival films for the best Western films going.
I think I've seen like the first 20 minutes of that film.
It's got again. It's another one with an iconic sort of harmonica. Yeah. It's another one that's just you hear the music, you know what it is. So there's another one to watch in free time. But yeah, I mean,
Are we
this
gonna
is,
are we gonna
I
rate
want to
this?
see that film just for Henry Fonda.
yes,
That guy's a boss. I love him in. I don't want to start talking about other films now, obviously, but 12 Angry Men. He's the main character in that.
I've not seen that.
Like, he's meant to be like, well, he is the quintessential good guy. Like, heirs of nobility. He's the one who tries to like bring everyone back to the proper cause. And then he's the complete opposite in Once Upon a Time in the West. He's like the quintessential villain. And I think they're only filmed like a few years, or like a couple of years apart. But he managed to escape the what's it called? Typecasting.
Draft.
Yeah.
Did the film?
Are we gonna rate this film out of 10 then?
Yeah, let's do it. Did
how we do
the
it?
film at the end? Did the ending leave you satisfied? Did you finish 3 hours of watching and feel very content with what you've seen?
Yeah, I thought the last 15 minutes were epic. The way it was shot, the set, the circular centre, the wide pan, everything about it. The synergy with the beginning of him being in the noose and then him shooting it. You could kind of see it coming, but you kind of felt satisfied by it still.
So just before we give it a rating, I feel like we've mentioned a lot of good stuff about this film, and it's probably because it's a really good film. But to give it some balance, has anyone actually got any like negatives about the film, or not? Doesn't necessarily be a negative, but when you're watching the film, was there any part of it that you were either pulled out of it, or you felt it just lost a little bit of momentum at all?
Not pulled out of it. There are a couple of things where it's like there's a bit of poetic license, like the scene where he's with the bad, or was it Angel Eyes, and Blondie escapes, meets Tuco at the other end of the town, and then they decide to walk up the middle of the high street to go find his 5 men and then shoot them. I was kind of like, that could have been played a little bit better. They could have gone through the buildings. I was like, that's a bit unrealistic. And then when I mentioned when they all of a sudden stumbled on those two armies down by that massive valley by the bridge, and I was like, that's also quite a leap that they didn't. There would have been no activity around those two massive armies, and they wouldn't have heard the cannon fire.
Yeah.
Other than that, no, not really. But like, you can expect a bit of poetic license in big movies.
Yeah, I think for me personally, like you say, time is a big issue. There's not really much of a concept of time or even distance in terms of what they do sometimes. Especially, I know they didn't know where the cemetery was near the end, but when Tuco gets one up on Blondie and then hops on the horse, and then Blondie fires a cannon at him, knocks him off, and then it turns out he's in the cemetery just like that. But I know that's how you sort of keep the narrative rolling, but on the same sort of time, like I know a film like this is timeless. It really is, and like we're watching it right now. We're not the target demographic at all when this was made in the 60s. I mean, they wouldn't have even dreamt that people would be watching this film in 2020. But the film, it could be timeless, but there are bits of it that's of its time, including the acting. There are little moments of acting that just you give them benefit of doubt. When the drunk Confederate leader or whatever, Colonel, dies on the table and he goes, the whole like smile and then I'm dead. It's very much like slapstick
melodrama.
If that happened now, you'd be like, what? But you give it benefit of the doubt now because you're like, yeah, it's fine. But that is literally the smallest little foible. It's just that the little elements of it that are of its time, they don't detract from the film being timeless itself, but they are little things that you notice as you go along that do sort of take you out of the world that you've been absorbed into momentarily, I'd say.
Do you think the logic leaps, I suppose you could call them, are like less acceptable to audiences now than they would have been to audiences then?
Yeah. I 100% think that. And to be honest, that was my only bugbear with the film, was that I actually kind of felt that at times it kind of clumsily straddled between being what I think a spaghetti western typically would be, and then almost this quite serious commentary on like the Civil War that was going on in America at the time, and the tone of it I did feel shifted sometimes between these moments of where I was like, oh my god, I'm actually quite feeling something here, between the, like you were saying, almost bordering on ridiculous, Tom, where they're walking down that street in the showdown and just shooting people off buildings kind of thing, and it kind of hopped between that, and at times I was like, yeah, brilliant, and that sometimes I felt a little bit like jarring, but I do think that is because of the time in which we're viewing it versus the time in which it was created.